Now let's talk about AI history. Actually, Alan Turing is the first, and he proposed the Turing machine, which is kind of theoretical computer. And also he proposed the Turing test, which can evaluate the level of intelligence. Okay, and then people got together at a conference at Dartmouth. So there were lots of famous big guys there, including John McCarthy and Marvin Minsky. And in that conference, actually, John McCarthy coined the term AI, artificial intelligence. That word was first used in that conference. And now, the history of AI is actually history of neural network because recently AI is dominated by deep learning. Okay, and then deep learning is all about neural networks. So let's talk about the history of neural network. And the first thing was the Hebbian learning. Actually, Hebbian learning was the first learning algorithm to train neural network, which was proposed by Donald Hebb, and we call him the father of neural network, arguably. And the second one is perceptron, proposed by Frank Rosenblatt. And actually, the perceptron was actually successful. So with perceptron, the Rosenblatt could recognize some characters. But Marvin Minsky actually rejected this perceptron. Rejected means he actually mathematically proved that this perceptron is not strong enough to handle the real problems. Okay. And actually, the Marvin Minsky and Frank Rosenblatt, they are kind of high school classmates and they're competitive. And in 1986, and finally, backpropagation was proposed to train multi-layer perceptron or multi-layer neural networks. Okay, actually, backpropagation was proposed in 1970 something, but back then there was no internet and they didn't talk to each other. There was no communication between the researchers, so they didn't know what's going on in other research institutes that much. So in 1986, finally, people got to know this backpropagation algorithm because Roman Hart and Jeff Hinton and Ronald Williams, they actually wrote a book about this backpropagation. So actually in 1980s, there were a lot of research, a lot of papers about neural networks, and the backpropagation was one of them. Even now, when we read some papers, when we follow the citations, then sometimes we get to some papers which was published in 1980s. Okay, so we had the really good research papers in 1980s, but the neural network didn't actually make a breakthrough. So in 1995, SVM was proposed by Vemnick and Cortez, and SVM was really powerful and easy to train, and so people actually moved from neural network to SVM so fast. So in 1990s or in 2000, early 2000, people didn't like neural network that much. So if you have a neural network in the middle of your paper title, then it was kind of rejected with high probability. But during this winter time, but still there are some researchers who worked on neural network, like Jeff Hinton or Yosha Bengio or Jan Luken. And finally, in 2006, Jeff Hinton and his student Ross Salakutinov, they actually published one paper in Science. And this one is actually the first deep learning paper, even though they didn't say deep learning in their paper. But so when you look at this history, you can see the ups and downs in neural networks. Now neural network is so popular. And in the history of AI, there were ups and downs, but since 2006, then actually the era of AI has been coming. So Incidentally, in 2011 and 2012, a couple of giant tech companies released some services and products. And the first one was IBM Watson. Actually, IBM Watson won the victory on Jeopardy show. And Apple Siri was following. And the Google Now was not that popular, but anyway, Google actually started this service in 2012. So many big giant companies started AI systems accidentally in the similar time. On mass media like New York Times and CNBC, there were lots of articles about deep learning and AI. So if you take a look at this, one of these example, like this one, how many computers to identify a cat? This is quite a popular article about deep learning. Actually, this one is actually one of ICML conference paper, and when the paper was published at the conference, almost at the same time, actually this news article was published. So interested in what's going on in the research. And can you read this title? The title of this article says, "Scientists See Promise in Deep Learning Programs." So before that, before deep learning, people didn't expect anything. From deep learning, actually, lots of people actually expected something great. And that was not it. In 2013, actually, MIT Technology Review published this article, 10 Breakthrough Technologies in 2013. And the first technology was deep learning. And they said AI is finally getting smart. So before deep learning, actually AI was not this smart. So people didn't expect anything from AI. Now deep learning got popular. But back then in 2013 in Korea, nobody actually was talking about deep learning. Actually, we started talking about deep learning from Samsung. But other than that, we didn't have many researchers working on deep learning back then. And AlphaGo. So everything has started with AlphaGo in Korea. As I said, before AlphaGo, no one, actually a few, but okay, with a little exaggerations, actually no one was talking about deep learning. No one was talking about AI. But after AlphaGo, everybody was talking about AI. Okay, so I think AlphaGo is kind of gift from God. Okay, since then, the market has changed and the research community and researchers, everything has changed. And AI speakers are kind of the next battlefield, one of the next battlefields. So there are lots of giant tech companies making AI speakers. So Amazon Echo and Google Home and SKT Nugu and the KT Gigajini. And the Naver, Samsung and Kakao, and actually they started working on these AI speakers. Because AI speakers are really good platforms to implement AI. So we can communicate with these AI speakers. Okay, and this communication is based on the AI actually, and this AI can connect the users to many different services. So these big companies are interested in AI speakers. And this slide shows some impressive story about the history of the computer taking control. So you can read all these things by yourself, but let me focus on these two parts. So around 1900, completely automated push-button elevators available in small apartments. It means automated push-button elevators are available in 1900, like today's elevator. So if you want to go to like a fifth floor, then you push button 5, and then that's it. Then automatically it goes up and it opens the door when it gets there. In 1950s, automatic push button elevators introduced en masse. So people didn't use these automatic push button elevators for 50 years because people got scared by this automatic elevator. So I want you to think about self-driving car. So currently, if someone pushes me to a self-driving car, then probably I'm gonna be scared. Okay, so if the car is driving itself and I don't have any control there, then it runs at high speed, then I'll be scared. But it's just a matter of time. So when time goes, and then probably people will accept self-driving car. Okay, so it's kind of a big trend in AI. Okay, and the next one is quite important. Some people say that AI will fight against us, human, but that's not gonna happen probably. And we have to collaborate with AI. We should not compete, okay? Because if AI can do that, then AI can do better than us. So if AI can do that, whatever it is, if AI can do that, then we have to let AI do, and we have to do something else. And we have to understand how AI works, and we have to think how we can take advantage of AI, or how we can collaborate with AI. Look at these examples. Ultimate Go Challenge in 2017. And actually, in this challenge, AlphaGo played Go game against Koze. Obviously, yes, AlphaGo won. And after that, there was another kind of game. So one human expert plus AlphaGo, and in the opposite side, and one expert, human expert, and AlphaGo. So AlphaGo plays, and then AlphaGo plays, and one person plays, and the other one person plays. It means this guy should understand what AlphaGo does. So when AlphaGo plays, then this guy should understand what's happening. And also, this AlphaGo should understand when this person plays, right? So they should understand each other, otherwise they cannot win. Like us, we have a couple of examples for collaboration with AI. Okay, and then this slide explains why AI has not yet come. Okay, so there is an excuse. So these guys are big guys. And let me take some quotes. AI is whatever hasn't been done yet. And when we know how a machine does something intelligent, it ceases to be regarded as intelligence. So when we don't have that system, that it looks like, oh, that is magical, which can be done by intelligence. But when we implement that in a computer, then it looks like just computation, no magical things at all. So we don't count that as an intelligence. So when we don't have that, it looks like an intelligence. So when we actually have it, then it doesn't sound intelligent at all. It's just a result of computation. That's it. That's our excuse. We have made a lot of progress in AI, but it looks like we didn't do anything. But here's an excuse. And some people get scared by AI, and they think advanced AI, might be an existential risk. Existential risk means this thing could destroy the human beings. That is existential risk. So there are a couple of examples, like nuclear terrorism and nuclear nature of pandemic, like coronavirus, and nanotechnology accidents and nuclear war, etc. And superintelligence AI is actually the second risk. So people get scared, but what I'm saying here is that you don't have to worry about AI. AI is not an existential risk. And practically, these are actually the problems that AI can make. So, first one, your AI system can be affected by viruses. That is really dangerous. Okay? And the AI can be misused by people with bad intentions. Okay, so if you make a tool, then it can be used by a good people, or at the same time it can be used by bad people. So if AI is used by a bad people, then that's the risk. And also, AI can be biased all the time. Okay, and then biased AI remake major news and our lives. Means biased AI can change our lives. There is a saying like, we can make a tool and the tool will reshape us. Okay, so when we make an AI, then AI is supposed to be biased to the data set. Okay, and then that AI will reshape our lives. That's the problem. Okay, and then AI could take over roles. Think about these examples. Every night, kids could ask to read the same kind of tales. But actual mom or dad can get tired of reading the same books again and again. But AI can read the same book again and again and again with the softest voice, with the big smiles all the time. Then the kids will get attached to AI more than their parents. That's the problem. So social relations will be different. That is a risk. And people might feel inferior to machines. The machine can do this thing and that things, but human's ability is limited. So if human compares himself to a robot, then he will feel inferior to the machine. Okay. And the last thing is more important. We cannot reject AI's decision, even when we don't understand his decisions. Do you remember when AlphaGo was playing with Isedo? The commentator explained what AlphaGo did. In the first game, commentator actually said, oh, AlphaGo made a mistake, and usually the human expert don't play that kind of play. But in the fourth or fifth game, when the commentator don't understand AlphaGo's play, then he said, AlphaGo had a plan that we don't understand. It was a scary moment. In that case, when AI makes some decision that we don't understand, then can we actually reject AI's decisions? Or do we have to just accept AI's decisions? That's the problem. Okay, that's it. I just explained AI in my perspective, and people might have different opinions and different perspective. Okay, that's it.